Hi, Erik Linask here in the TMC newsroom here at IT Expo West. We're here in the LA Convention Center, day one of IT Expo. And I'm now with Leonard Bosack, who is the president and CEO of XKL. Leonard, welcome. Thanks for joining me. In addition to being the president and CEO of XKL, Leonard also, several years ago, many years ago, founded a small company. Well, it was small at the time, called Cisco. So you may have heard of that, but today we're here to talk about his newer venture, and that's XKL. Although XKL is really not that new either. Tell me a little bit about where XKL came from and what you're doing now.
We've been around for more than 10 years. We started out to do some computing work focused on I/O, but around the time of that millennial bubble, we realized a lot of people were putting fiber in the ground without considering what they were going to put on the ends. And with the advances in the optical physics and component technology, we thought there was an opportunity to produce wideband, compact, power-efficient systems at a much lower total cost of ownership than you would get out of the 7-foot rack guys. So 7-foot rack, 4 kilowatts, compare that with a pizza box and 150 watts, and that's sort of the story. That's the punchline in terms of our equipment.
Right. So what differentiates your equipment? I mean, that's always the question, is how do you get out to the market and make your product better? What differentiates you from your competitors?
There's two things. At the endpoints, we're smaller, simpler. We integrate with enterprise networks. There's no TL1 involved with our systems, and if you don't know what TL1 is, you should keep it that way. It's SNMP managed. If you hook a terminal up to it with that same blue cable you use for your router, type question mark, and in a few minutes you'll be familiar with what's going on. It looks, smells, tastes, and feels pretty much like what you're used to. Integrates with your enterprise network management system. And you won't have any trouble getting along with it at all. So that's the endpoints. They're small, take less power, fit right in with what you got. If you need to go a long distance, we've emphasized improved optical physics. In the last 10 years, there have been improvements in the gain medium for optical amplifiers, in particular EDFAs. Also, the possibility of having reasonably safe Raman amplifiers as a preamplifier has emerged. And the combination of those two lets us put less stress on each technology to produce a better result in a combination. So we can go substantial distances with greater linearity and fewer, shall we say, instabilities or people who've managed EDFA networks have some war stories, and ours should not have any. They're a whole lot easier to deal with than some of the prior amplifiers. So if you want to go a long distance, we can do that. We can go, typical route between New York and Chicago is probably 1,700 kilometers. We can do that unregenerated, and that feeds right into the latency question. Here we've gotten interesting questions from various people. One gentleman fairly asked, what's this business about nanoseconds? The speed of light's the speed of light. Fiber takes as long as fiber takes. And that's absolutely true. My view is the way you should measure latency on a given route is from the front panel of the equipment at one end to the front panel of the equipment at the other. And that means that's all the equipment latency, the amplifiers in between, the fiber. The bulk of that delay is going to be the fiber. Typical routes between, again, New York to Chicago, greater than 10 milliseconds. I'm confident in that number. The speed of light and fiber doesn't change much. It's going to be about the same for everyone on the link. However, you use our equipment, and the propagation delay through ours, which is fundamentally a level 1 device, is on the order of 10 nanoseconds. And it really is 10 nanoseconds, and you can measure it. Everyone else that's in the business pretty much can't resist putting a wrapper around the frame, and so you have to buffer it in, buffer it out, and it takes longer. So when you say nanoseconds, it's nanoseconds through the equipment. The speed of light is still milliseconds from city to city.
Fair enough. So we were talking off camera a little bit about where the market is now, where the market is going with regards to 10 gig, 40 gig, 100 gig. And where do you see us right now, and where do you see us going?
Well, 10 gig is now the sweet spot of the market, really. 40 gig in the conventional RZ blinking lights form, simple, RZ keying, is just too hard. A 40 gig assemble rate turns out to be very difficult to construct any sort of link. People maybe don't know or wanted to ignore that impairments went as the square of the symbol rate. And so what's going to happen to go faster is we have to go to more complex modulation formats. No one looking at 100 gig isn't talking about at least some sort of quadrature polarization diverse quadrature modulation. Our own work is in fully coherent field reconstruction receivers and transmitters. We're interested not just in 100 gig, but what happens after that. And there will be a future, but it's a hard future, and it's going to take longer than, unfortunately, some of the claims you hear. I recently attended a presentation which the gentleman wanted you to believe that 100 gig was somehow in the past. And I'm not sure what world he was living in, but in my world, 100 gig is still in the future, really. Although if you want to say the 10 gig channel is 100 gig, we've been shipping 100 gig for a couple of years now. It's not the same. When I say 100 gig, I mean 100 gig down a single colored carrier.
True. Fair enough. Fair enough. And certainly we are not there yet. But it does seem like in a lot of instances, some people are just jumping the gun, trying to get from 10 or get from even 1 to 100, skipping some of those intermediary points, and it's going to create some issues.
Well, it creates a perception issue. Anytime that what you can actually do diverges from what's being said, you would think that rational people would sort of shake their head and say, I don't trust any of these folks. And that's bad for the industry as a whole. I think you ought to be able to do what you say you can do when you say it. And acting as though you're going to get to 400 gigabits because some one person with a hand-tooled lamp experiment could do it, that's way different than being able to sell it and have, how do you say, folks that go home at night run it.
Right.
There's a real big difference between one guy in a lab and being able to do it for real in a business.
Excellent. Been talking here at IT Expo with XKL's President and CEO, Leonard Bosack. Leonard, thank you very much for joining me. Enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.